To begin, I was asked to explain why I chose this real life math task. And first, what we had to do, we had to identify the GSE standards, which are here, the grade 7 EE unit 2, which was expression and of equations. We had to use the properties of operations to generate equivalent expressions, solve real life math problems using numerical and algebraic expressions and equations. We went on with our standard here, apply properties of operations as strategies to add, subtract, factor, and expand linear expressions with rational coefficients. And the next question was, what are the math concepts used in this task? I scroll down here. And we asked, what skills and content learning standards are you teaching? And we had these questions that we asked our students: what relationships between the product and sum representation of the area model? How does the area model help to explain distribution properties? And we had several other questions. So at this point, I want to show you the website where I get my essential questions. And this site has so many other tools, but for today, I want to show you the essential questions. We click right here for math. And you see all these essential questions I can use depending on what subject I'm trying to teach. As you scroll down, here go essential questions that are for Common Core standards and math practices. And notice the mathematical practice standard. As you move on, you see models with math, other math practice standards, hint, hint, math practice standards. You have other essential questions, and as you move on, you have everything you need at this website, and not just for math. You can move on to the go back in this site for social studies, for humanities, for language arts, all these other essential questions you can use at this website. The next thing we want to do is the pre-assessment before we move into the lesson. With our pre-assessment, I'll first begin, we have to give our reference, where we pulling our information from. And I asked the kids first to make sure what their background is in geometry. See if they understand what a perimeter is. Ask them about area. See if they have like a background understanding of how would you find the perimeter of a rectangle. And show the formulas here, see if they can recognize the formula. How would you find the perimeter of a square? See if they can recognize the formula. How would you find the area of a rectangle? See if they can recognize the many different formulas: base, height, length, width. Find the area of a square: base, height, length, width, side times side. See if they can understand the area of a parallelogram. Again, side times side, base times height, length times width. Asking them all the questions they need, like with square, quadrilateral, parallelogram. See if they have like the base knowledge for geometry. So as I move into my lesson, I know where my students are. I pretty much know where their gaps of learnings will be. I know where their misconceptions will be because of this pre-assessment. Now we move into our lesson. And our task is area representation of the distribution property. The first part of the activity can be used to help students recall information regarding area as a precursor of the distribution property. And as you can see with the models we have here, we show how we have the models and how they're represented in algebraic form. As we move on to our lesson, we have it broken down into steps. Step 1, the First section introduced students to the idea of writing the area of a rectangle as an expression of length times width, even when one or more of the dimensions may be represented as a variable. And as you can see again with our model here, we again show the kids how to represent of geometric models as algebraic expressions. As we move on into step 2, the next section demonstrates how two measures of a section can be added to represent the sum of the entire segment. And as we're doing this, again, we have a mathematical model that shows the students this is how we represent that expression. And over here to the left is where we kind of tell what we're going to ask the students. Ask the students why the second model is adding and why the first term is multiplied. Now we move on to our third step. The key to this section is having students represent the area of each rectangle two ways to distribute the common factor among all parts of the expression in the parentheses. Pretty much what they're doing is taking the model in step 1 and the model in step 2 and combining both of those to give an expression, an algebraic expression, to the mathematical or geometric model that you see here. Now we move on to step 4, distributing and factoring areas, and we move also into our post-assessment because that's the end of our lesson. We've shown the points that we want to show. Now we want to notice this lesson wasn't very long. Before we move further, we want to make sure the children understand what we've taught them so far. Here are the answers out here to the left. And we asked them very simply questions about the 4 models you see right here. Step 4, we asked them questions about the 3 models we have here. Out here to the left is where we have the answers and the questions we asked the students. Step 6, again, post-assessment. After the lesson, we asked them questions about the 3 models they have here. Other answers and questions out here to the left. So now that's the end of the lesson. Now we break down the mathematical practices and other things. As you can see, here's a list of all the SMPs, which are the standard mathematical practices. And the ones I have listed, the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, are the ones I use specifically for this lesson. And as we look down below that, we have to also identify the MTPs, or the mathematic teaching practices. I have all of them listed here, but I just have listed the ones that I used for this lesson. Now we have to also identify the ISTE standard, and I only use one here, and I'm going to break this down very quickly. So here I chose 1A, facilitate and inspire student learning and creativity. Teachers use their knowledge and subject matter, teaching and learning, and technology to facilitate experiences that advance student learning, creativity, and innovation in both face-to-face virtual environments. As we move on down the document, I was asked to explain the conceptual understanding, which is that right here, where students will understand how to apply properties of operations such as adding, subtracting, factoring, and expand linear expressions with rational coefficients. Students will understand how to use area models to help explain algebraic expressions and equations. We went on to the procedural fluency, which goes back to my pre-assessment. The pre-assessment is in a Google Doc, and whether the student gets the answer right or wrong, the Google Doc gives them the answer, and they can keep taking that pre-test to sharpen their knowledge before, during, and after the lesson. Here are the links that I pulled all my information from. My standards, as you can see, the top highlighted link, the ISTE standard. Here where I got my essential question, that website, and that's it for my lesson. Now, very quickly, before we leave, we were supposed to review the solutions on the road trip task. We're supposed to identify 2 SMPs, which are the standard math practices. These are the ones I used for the road trip. And we're supposed to identify the MTPs, or the mathematics teaching practices. And these were the ones I used for the road trip. Very quickly, the question of the road trip was pick 4 places that we're going to go over 4 days and a vehicle. And this is the first SMP I use. Make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. The next SMP I used was establish mathematical goals to focus reasoning. The next question we had to go was to identify the miles per gallon and kilometers per liter that each tank will hold. We had to pick a vehicle. This was the vehicle I chose. These are the specifications that go along with that vehicle. The miles per gallon per city. This was the cost of the gas in liters in US dollars and Guyanan dollars. What was the total cost of gas for the entire trip? And again, we go back to our chart here. Kilometers and liters and the Guyanan dollars and the US dollars. I use attention to precision, which was my SMP. Now, as we try to find the miles per gallon in Guyanan dollars and US dollars, I used and connected mathematical representation. And that's pretty much it. And here's the reference page I have for the road trip task. Take care and thanks.